And we're back again with another video for sound design for new media. This one is on interaction patterns. Okay, so we've already established, if you haven't watched it already, what interaction design is. So you'll need that to watch this video. So interaction designers primarily deal with patterns, and in this video you're going to learn about interaction patterns and what they are. So by the end, you should be able to create your own. So what is a pattern language? How can we generalize this idea? So a pattern language, here's a convenient musical example, as is published in this paper, which is really good, and it's in the reference on the Canvas, a pattern language approach to interaction design, quite interesting paper, with lots of musical examples. But a pattern language could be something like this, a blues style as a top level category. That's the style of music we're trying to achieve. What's the subordinate category there? Instrumentation types, 12-bar progression, melodic phrases, blues lyrics. These are the kind of broad level categories that we could put into a pattern that makes up a blues style. Under that, we have things like triplet groove and chord transitions and other characteristics of a blues style that are much more specific. But this is kind of broadly what a pattern language might be, a set of mutually intelligible key terms that drive the design decisions behind something. If we were to say, for example, follow a pattern like this, we could effectively achieve a blues style song. That's one way of looking at it. If you start at the bottom and you work back up to the top, you should arrive at that outcome. Interaction designers use this way of thinking all the time to start at a technology and arrive at a specific outcome. So let's apply that more specifically. There's two kinds of patterns, activity patterns and design patterns, and these two ways of kind of describing patterns in general are useful for us to think about in the context of sound. So activity patterns describe the way that things are. They are general descriptions of about the way that something actually works and functions, and they serve the purpose of identifying and understanding and interpreting given complex situations. So activity patterns might be used to actually document an existing technical solution that's having problems, or they might be used to kind of ideate and bring about ideas that will help begin the synthesis process towards a design solution. And then design patterns, the latter, which is honestly where I spend most of my time, design patterns. And this is about identifying repeatable and reoccurring issues that exist within any given technology. And so sometimes you might hear design patterns referred to as heuristics, and I think heuristics are a subcategory of design patterns. They are interconnected and related, but they are design patterns is a broader term. And they actually describe solutions to problems. And they might be in the form of flowcharts or decision matrices, and there's lots of different ways of representing design patterns, but we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. So ways of describing and using patterns, I think there is broadly 5 good categories that we can use, which are all found, and I completely agree with in this, putting it all together towards pattern language for interaction design, this SIGCHI bulletin. Really from 1998, I love finding something from the 90s that I'm still like, yep, that's on point. Capture and description. Patterns can be used to describe key characteristics in a context-sensitive way, and we'll talk a little bit about context in a second. Generalization. That's again very related to heuristics. These are kind of generalizable features that we can find of any kind of given technology interaction. Prescriptive patterns, they could be used to prescribe a solution space, or they could be used to describe a very particular set of outcomes. They might be in the form of, say, a decision matrices or a flow diagram. Prescriptive solutions for patterns work very well with those. Rhetorical. These are the kind of lingua franca, common way of talking about design issues. These are much more like a high-level discussion about say, for example, the double diamond. That's a pattern that is rhetorical in nature. It is a observable way that the design process, the iterative design process, might function. and predictive patterns that actually propose what ifs. And these patterns are really, really good as well, because as designers, we are always talking about the what ifs. If we think back to our definition of interaction design, it's actually about bringing about the proper solution to a problem. And so predictive design patterns are really something that are quite useful to utilize. So how do you actually go through the process of making an interaction design pattern? This is all well and good, but quite conceptual. So to actually do this, we need to first identify a technology and a problem and give it a context. So this might involve defining a problem, but as we know, we don't always have to have a problem that we're solving for. We might be trying to document or observe, but we need to give a context, and this is where you can actually apply those different categories and describe the kind of pattern that you're about to create. The second step is this concept, which is I draw from cybernetics, which is an intellectual thinking movement about the ways that the computers act in relationship to humans and other computers. But input, process, and output is a very simple model that allows us to describe and break down any interactive system. So this is simply this. Any interactive system has three components: an input, a process, some way by which that input is modified to produce an output. Very simple. So you can go through any kind of interactive system and think about this. And maybe in this class, a microphone is a great example. Our input is a microphone. The process is the conversion, the digital conversion, and the output is a speaker. That's a very simple and basic interactive system. Now, a simple system like that, where each discrete component is very identifiable, can become immensely more complex when we start thinking about, well, what is the input to a phone? It's a touch screen. That means that we can actually change the shape and nature of the screen. We can use it to represent different kinds of meanings. We can use sound metaphors. We can do all kinds of things. So input, process, and output. You need to describe exactly which inputs you're looking at, exactly what processes you're targeting, and what desired outputs there actually are. And once that's done, you can more concretely describe the objective of the pattern. And is that objective something like to produce a heuristic, a generalizable pattern that can be used in other designs? Or is the objective actually to produce an idiosyncratic and unique pattern which describes a particular scenario or a particular problem that's context driven? So these three steps together we'll use in the tutorial to actually begin to create our own interaction design patterns. And with that, thank you very much for listening. I'll see you in the next one.